Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eddie Oldfield with Quest Canada. I'm a senior lead for projects, and this is our fifth and final session, a practical exercise as part of an environmental trust-funded project promoting energy efficiency and land use planning. And just some points of order. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself. We do encourage you to ask questions or comments, and you can do so using the chat function, and I'll be moderating those. Today's agenda is a little different from our last four sessions. Following introductions, which I'll get to in a second, we'll be passing it over to Danielle Savard, President of Deco Design and a Senior Associate with Quest and a Registered Professional Planner, who will lead us through sort of a recap of some of the lessons that have been learned through the first four training sessions. We'll take a 5-minute breather to stretch legs, get a coffee, and so forth following his presentation. And then we have an interactive exercise that will allow all of us to apply the land use planning principles in a fictitious community development project. And that will take roughly an hour, depending on the nature of the group. When we come back out of that, after another brief leg stretch, we'll do a debrief where each group will have a chance to present the results of their planning session. And there are some closing remarks. The session is being recorded, and as all of the sessions are published on Quest website, so if you wish to go back and learn a bit more about the principles that were shared, please do so. We'll share a link with you a bit later. I'd like to introduce my colleagues as well, Helda Renian and Norma Panetta. If you'd like to just introduce yourselves to the group.
Hi everyone, thank you Eddie. My name is Helda Renian, lead projects at Quest, and I am based in Bowmanville, Ontario. Good to see you.
Hi, my name is Norma Panetta. I'm also with Quest, based in Ottawa. I'm the lead engagement and business development.
And both Helda and Norma will be assisting us as we go into the breakout groups later on in the session. And so, without further ado, I'm going to pass the stick to Danielle Savard. You can take it away.
Thank you, Eddie. I'm going to start by repeating my goal with this training for those of you that were at the previous sessions and the training. And really, my goal has stayed the same. It's for you, decision makers, visionary people, and leaders to become the heroes of the events you have to face. I aim at helping you to adopt the implementation of the energy efficient measures and sustainability principles and concepts to implement projects that respect the environment, respond to practically all social and energy efficient issues your communities have to face, and of course, reaching the healthy revenues that will help you to offer sustainable and energy efficient development projects and appropriate services for people who live in your projects. Now, you will recall that we have mentioned quite a lot about sustainable community design and the sustainable approach that we proposed in these different sessions of this training. And we really believe that it can help you to respond to practically all issues your population may have with developments, including energy efficient measures, integrate projects that will allow you to respond to climate change, offer affordable communities and housing, and increasing your revenues all at the same time with the development of your community. We're at session 5, and just to give you a kind of recap here, Session 1, we were talking about the framework that we are using, that is sustainable community design that we propose through this training. We have, after that, looked at different pieces of the puzzle that are affordable communities and housing. That was in October last time. We are talking also of green infrastructure. We mentioned that in November. Last month, we were talking about protecting the natural environment and providing the best return on your investment, or the ROI. All that information is on the Quest website. And during this workshop, we're going to have also the possibility of going back there and just to have a reminder, if you want, of what we were talking about and how these principles that were presented could be part of a project that you're going to build. And that is going to become the workshop. We're going to come back to that in a moment. But before I start too much, well, I'm just going to present myself to you for people that don't know me. I'm president of my own company. It's called Deco Design. I'm a registered professional planner with the Canadian Institute of Planners, and I'm a RPP with New Brunswick. I have a master's degree in business administration at UNB here, and also a master's degree in urban planning at McGill. I have more than 35 years of experience in planning with expertise in sustainability in the private, public, and NGO sector. And I received from the Gulf of Maine Council for the project that I'm referencing and the training that is Le Village en Haut du Ruisseau in Dieppe in New Brunswick, what they call the Visionary Award, and I'm still the senior associate with Quest. Okay, that being said, okay, we're at the workshop, and now think about that. We have the framework, we have different pieces of the puzzle that are all together, and we can bring also other elements you're going to see in a moment where you can think of how the design can be all integrated with that. And we're going to see how it's going to look for your community at that point. Okay, now to get the maximum from the workshop, please feel free. You have probably your phone just beside you, and just go and look at session 1, 2, 3, or 4, and look at the slides. Of course, I mean, the recording for that point, it's a bit too long, but just look at the slides if you want to have a kind of recall of what you have seen before with this training. Okay, now the whole thing today, it's going to be integration of all the appropriate elements. And what we have done with Le Village en Haut du Ruisseau, I'm going to show you what was done with that project. And basically, I mean, we were talking about the preconditions, the step and design elements, and legality. But today, I mean, we're going to focus really on put in place the infrastructure, integrating the parks, the urban agriculture, integrating all the relevant design elements, environmental, social, economical, in a workshop that is going to give you a kind of design of how it's going to be done. And we're not going to take too much time talking about benefits and profit and restoration of biodiversity and monitoring. But if you want to have a bit more information about that, we mentioned about that in January, and it's going to help you to guide the session today if you want to have a recall on that. Okay, now, I'm going to start with Le Village en Haut du Ruisseau. And when we started with that property, we were looking at the design of solution with energy efficiency measures in place and how it's going to work. It's basically a sustainable community application of the whole thing inside the property itself. And we focus on building efficiency, on energy generation, on walkable, bikeable areas. For example, I mean, on that property itself, the northern side of the property, we didn't remove the trees, the coniferous were kept on the north side, and that is going to bring a lower exposure to winds, to high winds in the winter, so higher building efficiency, of course. You can also justify the use of the transit system and the bike trail simply because we have higher density. You will recall that we were talking about 5 units for 10 hectares at the beginning of the project with what they had in the zoning that was for that property at the time. And of course, I mean, the builder said, hey, I'm not going to make money with that, so I would like me to increase the density. So basically, we were able to present a project with the sustainable community design approach. And he has been building 217 units that you can even, see these days. If you go on the site, let me know. It's going to be quite an interesting visit if you come to see it, and we can talk about it. Anyway, all of that to say, it's in order to bring higher efficiency, and the higher efficiency because it's higher density. You remember, land grows density versus net density. It's quite different. And when you can have a density that is at least 7 units per acre, now you can justify to have the use of the transit system. The bike trails also was part of the whole subdivision process, because we wanted to make sure that it's not going to be only car oriented, but it's going to have other modes of transportation than only the individual cars over there. East-west orientation of the street, so it means that the main portion of the building is going to be solar. It's going to be south orientation, so good solar orientation. And energy generation here is free for all these guys. We're at the walking distance from the commercial activities there at Boulevard Dieppe, that is about 500 meters from there. And we wanted to make sure that it's going to be linked from a walkable or bikeable point of view. The shading is going to reduce the overheating in the summer and provide protection from the winds in the winter, building efficiency again. And of course, fewer roads per unit compared to if it would have been a conventional project. And here we're talking about a lot of houses or units for any length of road that you're going to build over there. 76% of the property is protected, which correspond about 1,260 tons of carbon savings. And you're gonna ask me the question, okay, fine and dandy, that was the Viajan with Rousseau. How about us? How can we design it in ways that make sense? Okay, I'm just going to give you here some recap information that is going to help you to see how it can be implemented in your project for today. We're going to look at knowing your community, understanding the issues in design, knowing your site, selling the idea, recommending the design concept, and adjusting the design, okay? So first, when you're going to be with people of your group and you're going to do the workshop, you're going to look at what are the features in your community. Imagine that you're going to be part of a community. What are the features that your community would like to focus on? Is it going to be on energy efficiency? What are the elements in the energy efficiency that you would like to focus on? Is there an issue with drinkable water? I remember the city of Quebec wanted me to deal with their big problem with drinkable water over there. And they wanted to see how they can do something like that with that approach. Downtown, is there a link with your downtown you would like to have? You wanted me to have mixed land uses, residential, commercial, industrial, all together part of your project? Do you want to have recreation with that? Do you want to be quite unique? That means that you're going to have a project that is so unique in your area that all the other areas are going to say, oh, I'd like me to come there. Would you like also as a project to position yourself at the international level to bring immigration and also to bring the right investments? Basically mean here, you're going to have a discussion about your what we call the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, issues, whatever you can think of that you're going to discuss with your group with that workshop. When we understand a bit more how the design can help, we have to look also at the issues that we're going to deal with. And one of the issue, you bet all the projects have the same issue with energy efficiency. It's going to be lowering the vehicle kilometers traveled, okay? And one of the other issue is because there are so many communities that are unaffordable these days, and there are units that are totally unaffordable, your subdivision will have to be built for people that are crucial to have a healthy communities. That means the 4 professions that should be there: police officer, nurses, teachers, fire people, men and women. These people may not have a salary that is shouldn't be more than 30% that is taken for an apartment or for a residential unit with their mortgage. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're going to build your subdivision. Think also of obesity. People are too much in their car these days, and we would like me to offer other mode of transportation, and also possibility of dealing with food desert. If there's food desert in your community, how are you going to deal with that subdivision? What are the elements you could bring over there? If you have a problem with vandalism, if you have a problem with crime, if you have whatever problem that is environmental, social, economical, what are the design elements that you have to bring at the table and think about it? Okay, now these are the issues, but now maybe we want to find the solutions. And the solutions in design could be as simple as, okay, we want to have mixed land uses. We want to offer other mode of transportation. We would like me to have the kids that are going to walk or they're going to bike to go to school. We want to have the services that are going to be all around. We want to make sure that we're going to have community garden that is going to be part of our subdivision. We want to make sure that the mixed land use is going to be in our books. We're going to make sure that the zoning is going to be appropriate. We want to protect as much as possible the green space. We want to have all the social interactions that we could have, the maximum social action that we can have with design, and whatever you would have in mind that could be brought at the table that you would like me to have part of the subdivision itself. You bring basically the maximum number of design elements that are relevant for the subdivision you would like to have with the property you want to subdivide. Okay, now when we use design for the solution, the first question that we should ask ourselves, where is the green space? And that is probably the most important question right from the get-go, because it's going to give you the plus value for your property. Find where is the green space of your property. Determine what should be protected. Determine the best location for urban agriculture, sewage, water, stormwater, best management practices for stormwater management, and energy efficiency, and also the best design elements for energy efficiency you can bring, increasing the neighborhood's interaction. How do you want to do it? You want to have transit-oriented development plus complete street in mind when you're going to build that subdivision, and how it's going to be translated in terms of design. And of course, when it's time to talk about stormwater management, we will use the best management practices for low impact design. And you will remember that we were talking about using in sequence all the design elements, first of all, for conservation of the property first. After that, when all that is done, look at the design elements for minimizing the runoff. After all that is done, for slowing and minimizing the travel time. After that is done, okay, I mean, you can have your rain barrel, you can have storing the runoff. And of course, I mean, pollution prevention is always omnipresent everywhere. Okay, now, when we did the project at Le Village en Haut-Ruisseau, it was translated, the best management practices on the side, by having smaller pipes and disconnection. And I don't know if some of you are civil engineers. I don't want to give you a heart attack, okay? It's just for you to understand that in order me to bring the best management practices for stormwater management, we will have to think outside the box. smaller pipes, disconnection, constructed wetlands, cutting the curbs, narrowing the streets, detention ponds, rain gardens, linear rain gardens, bioretention swells. Basically, all these elements are part of the Viage en eau de ruisseau at this point. And that should be how you're going to translate your best management practices for your site when the site is appropriate. But you use always the relevant ones, of course. I mean, common sense, come back here. There are opportunities you will have to sell your project to your community. And I would suggest use the people of your community where they're going to be around that subdivision. We use, for example, the kids that were at the school close by that subdivision. And these kids, I mean, presented to council their ideas of design for an ecological park for the green space. We have 76% of the property that is going to be protected. So why not to have them that are going to give their ideas, and they provided their ideas with green paths and labyrinths and name it. I mean, what these guys, I mean, were quite something. They made their presentation to council. Council was quite impressed. The media were there and they were quite impressed. They had an article, basically, I mean, they sold the project to the community right from the get-go. And it was easy after that to just go through the subdivision process itself. Now, because we want to facilitate our understanding of how the design elements are going to work, we use the traffic light analogy, and we suggest please use the same traffic light analogy with 3 colors on a map. That is going to help you and guide you where you should not build, which is on the environmental constraints, don't build there. Everything that is from a biological, historical, cultural point of view of interest for the community, which is a yellow area that is on the map, that should be also, you should make sure that you don't build there, but you could have certain types of infrastructure. For example, best management practices for stormwater management could be done over there. And of course, what is going to be the remainder of your property, the green space, it's where you can have the highest density of land use density and activities over there for building the subdivision itself, for having the maximum number amount of infrastructure over there. And after you have that, of course, I mean, you're going to know what is your red area, and I'm going to come back here to the hatch area, okay, on that map. The hatch area here has been a regulation that is in place here in New Brunswick, and for those of you that are not from New Brunswick, probably you don't have that regulation. We have a 30-meter setbacks from wetlands. So that's the reason why it would be red in New Brunswick. However, for this exercise with the workshop, if you don't want me to have that dealing with that with this exercise with the workshop and just say, okay, it's not applying in our area because we don't have that regulation in place, that's fine. We can work with that. And you can make your presentation to council without that, okay, for this exercise. However, for New Brunswick, when people may not dealing with that, they have to deal with this situation over there. Okay, now, in order to know your site, of course, I mean, you have walked your site, you have known where the mature forest is, where it should be protected, the marshland, the wetlands, the protection of significant biological resources and watercourse. And of course, they have Fox Creek that goes on that property that should be protected. And you determine also the additional information in order to determine the significant features from a biological point of view, nature, farmland, cultural, historical, which is the yellow area on the maps. You add that to your environmental constraints, that becomes your conservation area. And now you have the area where you could build. And when it's time to sell the idea with your groups, you're going to talk about that. What is the name that we want to give to that type of subdivision? In the States, a lot of communities call it conservation development. Here in New Brunswick, we call it sustainable community design. There are people that call it greenways, green subdivision, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter for the moment. It's an acronym, or it's a set of ideas that makes people ring with it. And if it's going to work for your community, that's good. Preconditions are already in place. We're going to tell you some of the information in a moment. Analogy of traffic light colors on the maps. We already did that exercise for you. So you're going to have a map with some colors on it. And you will have to think about integrating the energy efficiency design elements, incorporating also the design solution to social issues on affordability. It's extremely important that you think about that one. Obesity also, how you're going to deal with that. Health issues, if you want. For example, avoiding isolation of seniors. How are you going to deal with that? Crime, vandalism, name it. I mean, think about elements, or I should say, think about issues that you can find in your communities that you would like me to deal with, and how the design can make a difference. Percentage of imperviousness to determine the water infiltration. You will probably have to think about that one too. And the best management practices to mitigate the effect of development on the water recharge. Think about that one. If you're going to have as an objective that each drop of water that comes on the site is treated on the site before it's released in the environment, okay? Recommend a design concept, and here you will have, as a group, you will have to present your subdivision project, your design project, and think about that one. I mean, we start with your subdivision. The zoning in place accounts for only 5 units on 10 hectares. And when it was presented at the end, the builder was able to build 217 units with a density of 7 units per acre, and still protect 76% of the property itself, and having at least 20% of affordable housing for the project as the Village en Haut du Ruisseau, plus energy efficiency measures in place. Okay. All that being said, also adjust your design to your context where the subdivision is going to be. Is it going to be close by a commercial boulevard and on the site at Le Village en Haut du Ruisseau? They are really close to Boulevard Dieppe. At the time it was future Boulevard Dieppe. Within 500 meters from commercial activities. Look at how you're going to bring other modes of transportation than only the use of the individual cars over there. And that means walkable, bikeable, transit-oriented type of subdivision. And as I mentioned over and over again, don't start with the roads. Don't start with the lot size of each unit. Okay, start with the open space, which is extremely important. Determine where the open space. Talk with the people of your group about where is the open space. And after that, well, today maybe we won't give you a bunch of M&M, but if you have M&M close by, oh, it's Valentine's Day too, so happy Valentine's Day. So eat your M&M later this evening, but not today. So the housing sites, we won't give you the M&M, so we will give you a possibility of doing it electronically. So we're going to come back to that in a moment to show you how we can do it. And after that is done, the housing sites, taking advantage of the site, you have to connect the dots, the streets layout or general layout, just to give us an idea and give an idea to your fictive council of what you're going to propose. And of course, lot lines, but I don't think you're going to have time to do the lot lines at the end. So, but it's always in sequence. Don't start with the streets. Please don't start with the streets. I don't know how many times I have to repeat that one because people have a tendency to start with the streets. You don't start with the street. You start with the open space. Okay. Now we're going to move on now with the practical exercise. We're going to use the learn design principles in a concrete project by providing our own design and fictive community subdivision project. And I hope, you had the time to think about what role you would like to play. Here are some of the roles that we're proposing: developer, builder, mayor, or councillor, planner, coordinator, civil engineer, CAO of the municipality, and other relevant role for a targeted project. For example, you can decide that you're going to be the banker. You bet that people will have to listen to you. And you can have, for example, a nurse that is going to talk about healthcare and how healthcare fits with the whole thing. You can have other role that you want to play, but I would like to have only one person per role. Like I don't want to have 3 mayors in a group, okay? It's not going to work that well. The idea is for you to see the dynamic and what type of discussion you can have with the other people that are going to be in your group for the workshop. And we're going to have a break of 5 minutes, but just to give you an idea, the memory helper and the steps is going to help you. And of course, we're going to ask you to have fun. And I hope, you will have fun. Every time I've done that exercise with people, they had a lot of fun. So on that, Eddie.
Yeah, just before we go to break, I guess you're going to just give a couple of more pointers when we come back from the break, and I will also show the exercise before we get into our breakout groups.
Okay.
So take 5 minutes.
5 minutes, that's fine. And starting right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. You can pause the recording, Hilda. Thanks.
Okay. You want me to start, Eddie?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep going.
Sure. Okay, well, we're back. I mentioned about the memory helper and the steps. Look at that as a kind of a way of guiding your discussions with the group you're going to be in during this workshop, and ask the questions that are going to be targeted. For example, the objective of your project. You have to determine what is the age consideration you have in mind, neighbors' contacts, necessary amenities, energy efficiency, facilities, considered also the constraints and the open space when it's going to be time for you to decide how you're going to design the houses over there, energy efficiency, density, the right densities, finding the location, and affordable. It's maybe not mentioned here, but affordable housing is going to be part of your subdivision. We're going to focus on that quite a lot too. Road and connectivity, how wide are you going to have your roads? Right away, how would you think about it? Asphalt portion, access roads needed. Who is responsible also for the roads and the maintenance? Stormwater management, what are the best practices you would like to use that can be used on your site? And the sewage system, is it going to be on site? Is it going to be a cluster system? Where should it be located? And of course, I mean, have fun. I hope, I mean, you have fun. So the group exercise, it's going to be between 5 to 10 individuals, and Helda is going to break up the different groups and a number of people that she's going to mention in a moment. You're going to have about 60 minutes over there to talk and play with the map. And you're going to have one facilitator that is going to help you along the way. The presentation after that, all of that, I mean, to prepare you for the presentation to council, and it's going to be 5 to 8 minutes to council. I'm going to start now with the narrative, the story behind your subdivision itself. I call it, I mean, my community, could be your community, could be whatever name of community you want to give, okay? And imagine that it's a property that has 10 hectares, is flooded on occasion for certain areas, and you're going to see it's the red shaded area on the map. If you want me to use also the hatch area as the flooded area on your map, okay, that's fine. I mean, it's up to you. Builder had in mind to build at least 50 houses over there, but the council wants to implement all sustainable principles and project, including all appropriate energy efficiency design elements, have the right density for my community. So council is looking at 50 houses, but if they could have even more houses that are going to be built there with the right type of design, they're not against it, okay? Project can be hooked up for water and sewage, but you could consider it also to have an on-site water wells and cluster systems and septic field that is going to be part of your subdivision. You decide with the members of your group what you're going to do. Council is asking at least 20% of all the houses that are going to be built are going to be affordable, and treat naturally all precipitations on the site before releasing the environment should be part of your project, and future connection to streets around you is quite important too. Okay, now design your workshop with the open space in mind, housing, street, lot lines in sequence. And when you're going to look at your open space, determine on the map, where is the floodplain? Where are the important features on your map? Energy efficiency, elements, facilities, where to build the houses. I know that I'm repeating myself, but it's so important that people understand these parts, okay? When it's time to look at the houses and where you're going to put them, determine the best location for your houses, considered solar orientation with energy efficiency, whatever measures you would like to bring. Facilitate the contacts with neighbors using best management practices for stormwater management, and also water sewage, where you would like to have it and what type of water and sewage you would like to have there. You can have after that the connection with your streets. Probably your facilitator for your group is going to help you. Remember that less asphalt is better. Facilitate contacts with neighbors and use the best management practices for some water management. Recall some of the information we provided. There is a section of gray and green infrastructure. I think it was in November, last November, that we talked about that. Okay. When it's time to go with your design, there are opportunities and concerns. Take advantage of your topography, sun orientation, energy efficiency, natural areas, view, marketing needs, whatever you have in mind that could be taken advantage of, and beware of stormwater management, street design, water and septic systems, energy efficiency, clean energy, whatever also other items that you would like to bring at the table, okay? We are expecting that each group is going to bring a draft document to council for council to consider, okay? And each group is going to be organized as such as mentioned here with the logistic. In each break room, we're going to start with identifying your role, which role you're going to play around the table. And we're going to give you the link, and Helda is going to help us in that regard. Decide who will present to council. It's important right from the get-go. You're going to know who is going to present to council. Would like me to have one person that is going to present, and write your objectives. Use Mural, which is the software that we have there. Identify the green space to protect, negotiate where the houses are going to be built, road design, and presentation to council. And think outside the box, think outside the box, think outside the box. It's a workshop, okay? So it's, and I hope, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of fun in your break room. At the end, I mean, we're going to come back and we're going to decide as a municipal council which project we're going to choose, okay? So on that, I'm going to leave Helda.
Actually, no, it's me.
Oh,
So you can stop sharing your screen.
Okay, stop sharing.
Okay, so before we jump into our breakout rooms, the first thing I want to do is just mention that we are a small group.
Okay.
And so Danielle, there's a question for you first. We can break into 2 groups with 7 people, but that would mean there's you and Helda in one group and myself running the other group.
Okay.
So you would have 5 people participating in the exercise and I would have 6. The other way to do this is to bring all 11 participants, other than the 3 of us, together in one room. And I'm just curious what you think. Do you want 2?
It's preferable to have 2 groups.
Okay, so we'll stay with 2 groups. And also, before we get started, I want to explain to everybody what we're about to do. If anybody needs to leave and is not able to participate in this part of the session, please let us know now in the chat. And while you're doing that, here's an example of the mural exercise that I will be sending, or we will be sending you a link that you can join. It's free. You just go to your browser or click the link and you will be brought into a mural like this. And I'm going to explain just a few things so that it makes it easy for everybody to navigate and to use. First of all, when you want to move the map around or the whole screen around, it's simply doing a left click and dragging your map around. If you need to zoom in and out, if you have a little round button on your mouse, it's simply zooming in or out. If you don't have a round button on your mouse, there is a plus and a minus in the bottom right corner that you can also use to zoom in and out and move your screen around. So various options for moving around on the screen. And I'll pause for questions after, but I'm going to go through a few things here. The first thing to do, as Danielle mentioned, is to identify the roles. So the first thing we're going to do in each of our groups is decide who is going to be the developer, a counselor, a planner, a civil engineer. It's up to you. We can't prescribe that. It really is where you feel most comfortable, but the best thing is to have a few diverse perspectives during the planning stage. The second thing is to write objectives. So based on some of the principles you've learned and how you want to design your community, you would simply click on a sticky note like I've done and start typing. And this is where we will record the objectives of your particular group. And once that is done, just remind you that there are some reminders down here, memory helper, that will help you consider various aspects as Daniel has outlined. We have some additional sticky notes at the bottom if you'd like to take notes. But the main part of this exercise is to plan, using the sustainable community design principles, a neighborhood that accommodates a minimum of 50 units in the red line that's outlined here. You can build in, as you mentioned, in some of this crosshaired area, but keep in mind that that is floodable zone. And that could mean that there's a certain type of infrastructure that might work or might not work.
Okay, can I add one thing, Eddie?
Go ahead.
There's a portion that is in the south over there. Can you see my okay? Can you see my arrow? No, you cannot.
No, you're not in my mural.
Okay. Well, there's a portion over there, yeah, that is the south
This
of the
area.
property, yeah. If you want to add it as part of your subdivision, that's fine, okay? It's not the end of the world. But keep in mind that you will have to link the whole thing all together and how you're going to do it, okay?
Okay. Okay, and now just to make you aware of what the colors represent, it's pretty important. The first is red, which is a sensitive zone. Might be a buffer zone, for example. Yellow are zones of interest, and green are zones that are favorable for development. It'll be entirely up to you to decide how to use that land. And according to the steps that Danielle has outlined, the first thing to do is to determine the placement of the units. So over here on our right, we have single family homes, townhouses, and apartments, as well as commercial units. And you simply drag and drop these onto the map where you would like these to be placed. You might need to play around with them for a little bit until you're happy with a particular design. The next thing is, of course, the commercial units, as well as identifying conservation area, which is what you should start with, where you're not going to build. But if you want to build a park or a green space or a rain garden, you can use the green square. You can rotate that if necessary. It's as you wish. Once you've done that, you add the roads, and the roads will help you with, but basically it's still the same thing. You're dragging lines onto your map and you're moving them around to accommodate whatever structure you're looking for in your road design. And then we've given you some optional tools that you can add into your design, including stormwater retention pond, trees, foliage. If you'd like to designate certain buildings as net zero or net zero ready, not sure if you can all see that, but these again are just draggable. If you'd like to identify sites for renewable energy like solar and wind, that can also be done. We have some options for combined heat and power, but we're not going to get into too much of this. Really, it's just adding some of the details to your community based on the objectives you've set. If you have a commercial unit, for example, up here, one of these could be designated as some kind of manufacturing facility that has waste heat. That could be a waste heat source that would be usable within a high density neighborhood. And you also have the option of adding electric vehicle charging stations, transit stops, and active transit like trails to your map. So lots of different things you can play around with in your design on this map. Danielle, I know that based on the chat, I think there are 3 people who will have to leave. And so that brings us down to roughly 7 or 8 people.
Okay, so we're gonna have only one group.
I think that's probably the best idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a reason why we prefer to have 2 groups usually, at least, I mean, 2 groups. But I'm going to mention that later on
Okay.
at the end of the presentation.
So I do appreciate everyone taking the time. We will go from 45 minutes to 1 hour at the most, depending on how far along we get. And Helda will, if I hope that's okay with you, if you can just bring us all, actually, we can just stay in the main room. We don't have to break out. And I can share my mural with everyone, so it makes it easier on you, Danielle. So I'll give you all a link, and just give me a second. And I'm going to grab that. And I'm going to drop that into our chat. And so, as I've just done, you can take the link from the chat box here and put it into your browser. And I'll give you all a few minutes to join into the mural.
Oh, it's in the chat box?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Oh, it's over there. Okay. So everybody is unmuted now?
I don't know. We could ask folks to do so. Why don't we take a moment just to introduce ourselves to each other to see who is in the room, and then we'll get to.
Okay, could you restart? I'm sorry.
Sure. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for meeting with us this evening and to review the development. We're proposing on a 10-acre piece of land between Keith and Buck Roads. You will come in off of Keith, a 40-kilometer road. You'll first see the beautiful buildings, commercial buildings to support the development. We have solar panels in this area as well as a park, and that is to provide supplementary energy and to provide energy for our EV stations that are located in the courtyard here of the mixed-use complex. Now, the mixed use would have apartment buildings up top with commercial space on the bottom, and that would be supported by the 4 30-unit apartment complexes that are all net zero. To that, you would also see.
Pardon me, Jennifer, were you saying that each of those buildings has 30 units? So we've got
That's what I understood we had spoken about
120
earlier.
units in that area. Okay.
Yes. So that would support all of the commercial enterprise at the front of the proposed development. The roadways through here are all at 40 kilometers max. And we're taking advantage of a large swath of land that's in the center that's undevelopable. We would like to maintain that area for trees and for other natural embellishments throughout the community. So for everyone, it's for everyone, so everyone can be close to nature.
Can I ask a question?
You certainly can.
All the green boxes you have in the yellow polygon over there, yeah. It's not a community garden that you're talking about. It's just having trees over there, that natural areas that are just left that way.
Where you see the trees at the top here, I would say that those will just be left as they are now. And most of this yellow area, the trees that exist currently would be left the way that they are. In this area where there's some green, there may be some embellishments, like there may be a child's play equipment in one of these squares.
Okay.
Those details will be worked out later, but this area is for all persons to come and enjoy.
Okay.
The roadway also takes you past single family homes that will each have a in-law suite or a secondary suite.
Okay.
There are trails that are connecting the entire community, so no one has to actually walk on the roadways. There will be footpaths for that. As you work towards the west, we have a few more single family homes, but then we also have another 2 additional apartment buildings that are not necessarily net zero, but they will be producing their own energy with not satellites, but solar panels placed on the roofs. Now, along the western extent of the lot, we will have townhouses. So there'll be 2 units in each of the buildings, and each will be supported by solar. I forget what these little red dots are, Mr. Engineer. You can speak to that maybe. Retention ponds? No, these are retention ponds.
Yeah, the as you can see where the little R1s, we have renewable heat sources. We were going to drill in into the ground to bring out some heat and power up those townhouses there on the west side, be a runoff of our sort of a district heating system to help keep those units as affordable as possible, because we knew that council had a priority for affordable housing. We also have a couple of district heating spots on the east end of the site for some of those single family homes that we were going to try to use there, as we know that you guys, your city engineer told us that these are encouraged practices in our town, so we figured we'd give that a shot.
Excellent. And just a little more to the trails. We've connected so you can move from Keith all the way to Chemin-Bourg along the trails. We are in negotiation right now with the city to purchase a small amount of land in that, yes, this area that would provide us an exit onto Chemin-Bourg without having to go through that wet area where there's so many restrictions.
Okay. Go ahead.
And I'm open to any questions that council or the mayor
Oh,
may
yeah.
have.
Jennifer, could I ask a question? What is meant to be a pedestrian bridge, could we turn this into something more like we would find around Sackville, New Brunswick, the little bridges on posts that kind of winds?
Did you
through the
know I was
wetlands?
from Sackville? Sorry, I really am from Sackville. So you mean
I did not know
similar to
that. I just know that there's some nice walkways in the wetlands.
So you mean like the duck walk that they have there?
Just on the outskirts of town, there's the wetland area that's
Yes.
designated wetland, and they have those walking, just same as you'd have at
Well,
beaches, amongst the dunes at beaches. So they're done in a very non-intrusive way, but big enough
That
so
was
that
done in
people with bikes would still
conjunction.
be able to cross.
Yeah, that would be something I'd be interested in looking at, but I know that project in Sackville was done in conjunction with Ducks Unlimited Canada. So if I could find a partnering body, that would be a
It
great
would be worth
idea.
your while to call Ducks Unlimited, I think.
I will make note of that.
Jennifer, I have question for you. How many units are we talking about for the subdivision that you're proposing to council?
I'm
And
going
I
to
would
defer
like
to
me to
my.
have a breakdown.
I'm going
right.
to defer to my engineer.
Yeah, in total here, we got 12 houses with apartments. So you can count those as units, as you guys would see. But yeah, they could be in-law apartments or basement apartments, depending on the preference of each home buyer who's going to buy those lots. We have 15 mixed lots, which could be.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you tell me how many units we're talking about when you're talking about 12 building apartments?
12 houses, and each house will have an apartment available to be put in it if when we sell those lots and advertise them as houses, if the purchaser of the lots wants to do that. So they're basically 24 units, in total, like one apartment per house of the 12 single houses, as you see there marked as H.
Okay,
addition to that-
24 units where, okay. So go ahead after that. What do you want?
We have 15 mixed lots, which could be used for housing or for, small scale commercial type uses, like someone who wants to have a small shop or a, personal service, something compatible with the neighborhood. That'll be reviewed at the discretion of council with each application.
Okay. So
we
how
got
many units? We're
15.
talking 15, 15 units here?
Yes,
15
Okay,
buildings.
15
No.
buildings.
15 buildings of how many units?
Well, probably.
4.
I was thinking that these would be 1 unit, per mixed building, or like one
Okay.
type of
So
standalone
15
structure.
units. Okay.
Yes.
So to
But
get the right feeling, in having traveled somewhat, I'd like to see around that front green courtyard, something more like 2 or 3 story high buildings in that area at the very least. In wrapping that green kind of commons, you want to create a nice street wall there. So you'd be looking at least 2 and 3 story buildings, I would think there. So you could potentially see.
Who is
If you had a
talking
commercial
right
use on the
now?
main level, you could have another 8 units above that, 4 on each level, for instance.
I'm sorry, I mean, who is talking right now?
Councillor
Uh,
Sean,
That was
we're
Councillor
very
Sean.
open. Yeah, we're
Okay.
very open to making those mixed units a bit larger, if that's what you guys would have in mind. We were sort of going with the apartment buildings would be the larger buildings, and then these mixed units would be the resident. But we're very happy with the thought of putting a few more units in each of those mixed units, if that's what
That would be
council would
great.
like.
I'm still confused, okay? So you're talking about 24 units, 12 apartments, 24 units, 15 mixed lots of 15 units, okay? So 24 plus 15 plus what?
Councillor
the-
Savard, if I may, the ones that show MX, if you kind of picture a typical downtown small village kind of building that would be 2 or 3 stories high, you
Okay.
might have a small commercial use downstairs, and then you might have 3 or 4 units on each floor above that.
Okay, so what is the builder proposing?
4 units per mixed unit.
Okay, so how many mixed units you have?
That means 60 units, sir.
60 units
60 units just there.
from our mixed lots, 15 mixed lots.
Okay, with commercial. Okay, what is
I
the
have-
square footage of the commercial?
Well, I guess the basement, if these are 2-story structures, the whole basement will be the commercial unit. And then we'll have like 3 like apartment style things right above it.
Okay.
So these are relatively economical sizes. So I guess it would be
It'd be approximately 75 square meters per unit.
75 square meters, okay. Now we're talking about 84, 84, 89, 99 units, basically 100 units for your subdivision.
well, then there's the apartment buildings, the 6 apartment buildings that have 30 units each.
Oh, plus 30, another 30 units.
No,
And then
for
we have our
with 6
townhomes.
buildings, so
You've got
180
180
units.
units, yeah.
180 units.
Just to be
Oh,
fair, that
okay.
would be 3 stories with 10 units per story. You're getting into quite large buildings there, and I'm not sure that suits the site and the nature of this neighborhood. You know, while I like to put a lot of people on this site, and certainly the city would like to have the tax revenues from those buildings, but it strikes me that somewhere in the 4 to 5 units per floor would be, I think, a bit more reasonable.
Okay, so like 18 units per apartment building.
Sure.
All right, we can make that work. Don't you think,
I think
Jennifer?
council can get behind
Oh,
that. We'll
yes.
have to talk about it, but
How about, I mean, if we
Councillor Day.
negotiate something here with affordability?
Councillor Day, I was gonna mention 2 things here. One, the A5 units from the developer are quite intrusive in the section with the mixed-use townhomes. Might
Okay.
consideration for a change out of those.
Okay,
And on the affordability aspect, depending on what the request is from the developer to the town for funding, I would suggest an economic development grant model to which we can write in affordable rental units and for how long those would be rented.
Okay.
So
affordability for the councillors, I'm going to ask them that question that is extremely important. What is affordability for your community for 1 unit and the square footage of that unit?
what's the average family income in our area, Councillor Savard?
Well, from what we're talking about, take a fireman. First year working there, what is their gross salary? $50,000,
averaging at 45, just to be safe.
45, 30% of 45 is what?
$13,500.
Okay, that is 13,500. Okay, this is the maximum they can pay for a mortgage per year or renting a place, a unit over there. And this is perceived for us affordable housing units. And we want to have 20% of them that are going to be at that level. Where are they going to be located? And
Well,
where are going to fit with the whole neighborhood itself?
20%. How many units have we arrived at with?
180. So it means that
Well, if
we're
you look-
talking about 36 units that are going to be
And we haven't counted the townhouses yet.
Oh, boy.
No, so for last number I saw was 280 units total, and that was not including the townhouses within that. That was including the mixed houses, the houses, and the apartments.
280?
Units, if you were going based on 180 units for your apartments, if you're going based on 24 units for the housing, and the 4 units per mixed housing, you were closer to 280 units already just for that.
How many
194 if
levels?
you include the townhouses as being 2 units each.
Yeah. How many stories are you talking about for each building?
Which building?
We were
The
led to
mixed-
understand that 3 stories was the maximum in this community. That's what I've always been
Yeah.
informed of.
Mm,
Yeah, the mixed development buildings are 2 stories with a commercial unit downstairs and 3 apartments upstairs. The apartment buildings are 3 stories with 6 apartments per story, so there are 18 units per apartment building.
Now I'm having a kind of difficult type of math, okay? Because I'm looking at, and you have the scale that is at the bottom of the map, okay? It gives you about 20 meters. The 20 meters, you have probably not more than 40 meters over there for an apartment building that has how many units? 30 units in it?
We got it down to 18 after, or 6 per
We've
floor.
revised.
And not more than 3 floors high. I mean, I'm not against high density. I'm just thinking, okay, how do you want to have everything fit like that?
Well, how about this? If it's 40 meters, then we'll make them 10 meters per apartment, 4 apartments per floor. So a 40-meter apartment building will be 12 units. Maybe that sounds a bit better.
And what is the floor area of each unit?
Depends on how
7
many
by 3
bedrooms you're
meters.
providing and if you're building micro units or not.
Thank
Yes.
you. Now you're getting to where I wanted you to go. Okay. So what is your market? And the silence.
Sounds like your market for the apartments alone are either young professional students or those on a lower income, more or less your working force that'll support your cafes and your restaurants and your other businesses. So if you're targeting that, you're targeting folks under $50,000 in rental units.
Okay, good point. Now, would you consider having units with tiny houses being built over there?
Like coach homes in the backyard of a single family home or something?
You know the 12 neighbors subdivision that we have
Yes.
here in Fredericton?
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider something like that with that subdivision?
It's not perhaps the best use of space when you look at the amount of space that has to be around them and as compared with a stacked multi-unit style of development.
Okay, so good point, but I'd like me for you also to think of the council as to deal with homelessness. So are you going to do something in that regard?
How long is the walk to the center core in this area?
Not that far. I mean,
Is it over 10 minutes?
okay, no, I'm going to let you determine what would be.
So my understanding is that this is between 15 and 20 minutes walk to the downtown core. So it may not be the best place to, given the kinds of services that the homeless require, may not be the best neighborhood for this development or for that kind of use.
Okay. Is it because you don't want to deal with it, or is it because you want me to shut up and let you?
Well, I'm thinking that they won't have cars, for
Yeah,
sure.
you're
And
right.
nor will they have e-bikes. Perhaps some of the other counselors would like to weigh in on this. It's a sticky subject.
Yeah, it is. But you
Yeah.
bet with the subdivision
I'd be
like
hard-
that, it's the type of conversation that is going to come.
To the
Difficult for me
developer,
to sell these lots to people, if that's the type, you know.
Thank you.
I'm a
You're
developer.
bringing a very good point.
Yeah, I want to make money. I want to sell
Yeah.
my lots.
No, and I understand what you're saying here, and here I'm not, I'm playing another role, okay? It's like I'm outside the conversation, but the point is, if you're going to build high-end units and you're going to entertain at the same time, helping council to meet homelessness, you have to think a lot about how the developer is going to see it. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea what council is thinking, but you have to make a decent explanation if they say, no, it's not a good idea, why it's not a good idea, or what else they can propose.
developer, the town's proposing to you that one of the apartments closest to a bus station or a bus stop should be observed to possibly partner with the CMHC funding for low and more affordable housing. That might be to a council consideration within this project.
Okay, and lower affordable housing for how many units and who are you targeting?
Recommending at least one of the apartment complexes, whether it's in the A5s or one of the four along the top closest to either Keith. I would actually prefer Keith as a suggestion and recommendation to council, only because there's a bus stop relatively close, which would allow access.
Okay.
If you're looking at scenarios, council, when it comes to supporting your homeless needs, maybe it's a transitional home, but also that on the developer, whatever apartment complex is selected, should still have an integration and look and feel within the community, so those people don't feel offset within the community. So you have to look at it from the social aspect as well.
Thank you.
Could I
Okay,
take an
we will have a mean to conclude. We have only 2 minutes in front of us to conclude about this presentation. Okay, simply because we have also other information would like me to provide here. Okay, so could you conclude in 2 minutes, Jennifer?
Certainly. Well, thank you, Council. I think that we can take everything that you've given to us here this evening and we can work with it. I was going to say about the affordability. I know that in St. John, they permitted one of the developers there to build an extra floor. If that floor was considered to be affordable, that would be something that I may be willing to entertain here for each of the apartment buildings. That would give you a whole floor in each one of those buildings. If you permitted me just that one extra floor, we can accommodate. Really appreciate your comments about the green space and bringing our numbers of density down into something that would suit this spot a little better. And just thank you very much for your consideration.
Well, thank you very much, by the way, for everything you have mentioned. Now, I'm going to tell you something about that subdivision. Great exercise. You have interacted, you have discussed, you have said, why not this, why not that? And now imagine that council is going to hear another group that is going to provide another vision for the property. Okay? Now, that other group presents something, and the council will do what after that? What do you think?
They'll take the best ideas from both and then ask both developers if they can accommodate that.
Thank you. You are the first one ever that said that. Usually people say, oh, you choose the best one that fits with what the council have in mind. No, because each group have done quite an exercise of providing feedback to council. And there are good ideas, whatever groups is going to present in front of council. Now take the best examples and design and make it a composite of the best for the subdivision itself. And that is going to be the best that you can get for the subdivision. And we can see that if you're going to do the exercise with 30, 40, 50, you wouldn't imagine the number of people we had doing that exercise at Le Village en Haut-du-Ruisseau and Dieppe. And it was all these composition or combination of ideas that became the subdivision itself. And there was a reality check at one point. And it was the municipal engineer that brought that reality check. And we were really having a big discussion on what is feasible and what is not feasible. And after that, the builder built what they have built over there. Some of it, it's great. It was exactly as planned. And some of it was, well, needs improvement. Okay. But you win some, you lose some. And in the end, there's something that you're going to see. Can I go back, Eddie, to the presentation itself? Eddie? Hello, Eddie?
Yes, we're in the presentation now.
Okay. Can I go the presentation?
Yeah. You are looking at your browser at the moment?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have, can I share my screen?
Sure, I'll stop sharing and you can share your screen.
Okay, where can I see that? Oh, goodness. Where am I?
And I'll reiterate, that was a very fun exercise. It was super interesting to hear all the different inputs and perspectives as we went through that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now. Okay, now. The point is, at the end, we're going to come back to that. Okay, if you don't see any change in your community, because nobody thought about, oh, we shouldn't have green space or this or that, is because usually we limit ourselves on, for example, zoning. What is the zoning going to say? Or we should start with the streets, or we should start with whatever regulation that we have in mind, or whatever standards that we have in mind. And if we want to really be outside the box, we'll have to think about not material and sustainability elements, but really on wellness and full integration. And frankly, I mean, at the end, you want me to be able to go and sell the whole thing to a council. And we asked Charles at the end of the whole process, if you had to do it again, Charles, would you do it? And it was a long process when you think about it. We started in 2004, the first time when we started to talk to Charles. And Charles, after 8 months, he stopped the process, not us. He stopped the process because it was the first time he started to understand that the plus value comes with the green space, and people don't buy a house, they buy an environment. And when he started to think about that, that's the point where he said, oh, can I add that portion that is south of my property I'm considering for subdivision? And it was interesting, the dynamic that we got from that point on. Okay. And basically, Charles told us, yes, no wonder. I mean, he went from only 2.5 million in sales revenues to over 40 million. So And I'm very conservative when I'm saying that. So it's a no-brainer for him. The municipality went from 40,000 in tax revenues, if it would have been conventional, to 620,000 for basically the same type of services that it would have to have for that area. Okay. Now, all that being said, I'm going to ask you at this point, because we have a few minutes in front of us. Is there any questions that you would like to ask us at this point, where, or your comments? So what you think it makes sense or doesn't make sense for you? I'm going to open the floor for you to let us know what you think.
Daniel, I think you said it, you hit the nail on the head when you said, just here at the end, was consider the environment versus the housing and the development first, and really get an understanding and really understanding who your target audience is, because any developer that's coming forward is going to have to sell that to council. And just seeing what we've had for developments or proposed developments here in town, it's, you got to have your ducks in a row, and you have to make sure you've double checked all the rules and regulations, because if you come into a request for with 20 variances plus multiple rezonings, then you're not following the rules and regulations or what the community is looking for. So I think it's good that everybody got a chance to play with the mural and the dynamics of playing different roles, because I think it really gives you a different perspective and a sight look and feel and a better understanding when you are in the positions talking with developers of what your community needs are and really what you should be looking for.
Yeah, you remember that I mentioned about the development scheme or the secondary plan, how important these tools are for these type of subdivisions, because you don't want to be strangled by the zoning provisions that are in place for conventional subdivisions with these type of subdivisions.
And Daniel, I'll speak to that as well. We actually have a secondary municipal plan that was implemented, and Xander was a big key in developing it. And it's been challenged already 2 or 3 times in the 2 years it's been implemented. So it's nice to have that extra level of zoning within it, and even looking at a development scheme bylaw or incentive bylaws on top of that. But just be cautious, whatever the plan is, the other groups and the outside groups looking at the subdivisions or developments, they're going to pick it apart. So it's a matter of council's will on how much they want to follow their own plans versus, we're going to pick and choose for one developer versus everyone else, because they're more or less 10-year plans. So just something else to consider.
It's a dynamic process, by the way. You will have for one subdivision, someone that will say, okay, I need me to have the support of the community, and they will have to involve the community on board. The problem I've seen with conventional subdivisions, people usually, they want to do it really fast, and they don't want to think too much about it because they just want to make a buck and leave the area. Well, if you want to have a community development project, you will have to slow down and think about how the community is going to accept it and how the community is going to be on board, and involve them. When you do a design exercise, you bet that the community is going to be involved at that point. And you can see, here, you have on that map, okay, what he proposed, which is basically a combination of so many ideas that we had with all the people that were talking together. And it's not something that you see very often, these type of subdivisions. In the conventional way, what you're going to have it, you bomb the site and you start to put your roads there. So it's different. Any comments? Any other comments or questions?
Daniel, one of the things that I was observing in this is that we were all pretty happy to ignore the amount of parking that all of this would require.
Thank you. Good point.
And I primarily work for others, but every once in a while I get a notion about doing something myself. And I found a very interesting lot in Enfield, just outside the city and not encumbered by HRM Byzantine requirements for any kind of development and 2 to 3 year timelines for approvals. And I thought about doing something there with using micro units. And it's exactly the kind of thing that the area wants. They want to put in a lot of affordable small units.
Yeah.
But then in speaking with the planners, I said, so, what are your parking requirements? And I knew what the answer was, but it was going to be for 8 small affordable units, they were going to have a requirement for 13 parking spaces, which
Okay.
would occupy more than half of the lot.
Yeah.
And that was it. I just walked away. It's like, and you guys, I said to them, I said, you realize that's never going to happen. Like, no one's going to buy this at the price that's being asked for it and do this development with this kind of parking requirement. But their council is adamant that they need that much parking. They're
Yeah.
still very, very much car centric in their focus about what's needed to have a lifestyle that anyone would want to live.
Yeah. And people imagine that you should have your car parked exactly just beside your house.
Sure.
It's when we deal with innovations, you bet me that you will have to have discussion with the people of your community of what was done elsewhere that looks good.
I think the problem is we have a bit of a chicken and an egg problem. We've got a desire as planners to stop wasting so much space for accommodation of cars and, build for people.
Yeah.
Both housing and amenities.
Yeah.
And other support services rather than building more parking lots. But we have an environment where everyone has based their life around getting around by car. And it's not something that's going to change quickly, no matter how much we may wish it would. So it's going to be an ongoing challenge, I think, for a very long time.
Well, thank you for your comments. I'm just looking at the time. I don't want to go over 4 o'clock. Okay. So last comments from another person quickly.
I only want to thank you, Danielle, for helping facilitate us through this exercise and for the participants today to have provided some valuable input and tried your hand at this mural exercise.
Well, thank you, Eddie. I would like me to thank also Quest and the team at Quest with that training. Without Quest, it would not have been possible to do it. And also the Environmental Trust Fund that was able to provide the funding for giving that training. So thank you for them. If ever you're interested to pursue with that SCD approach, feel free, just get in touch with me. We'll talk to you and we'll see how we can do it with your area. And at this point in time, I have to say thank you. We have another minute in front of us. So Eddie, do you want to close?
Yeah, so that was the final session in the training series, and it will be published onto our webpage as well. Feel free to reach out to Danielle or through myself for any further information. And to close off, I think we have a poll set up. Just takes a few seconds for some feedback on today's session, if you could.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question or a favor, really?
Sure, go ahead.
If anyone wants to chat with me about anything I've talked about today, is there a way that you can share the addresses of those who are open to having their addresses shared? Because for example, I'd like to talk to Ron about some stuff he talked about, for instance. And I think that the invites went out in a way that you can't see the contact information of other people.
That's correct. And with over 100 people registered in all the sessions, it would be difficult to do that. What I can propose in the minutes remaining, and we can stay on the line, if in your chat box there, you can put your email address down for others to see, or you can direct message any one of the other participants by selecting them. Would that work for you, Sean?
I can give it a go.
Okay. if there's anybody in particular you want to reach out to, you can reach out to me and I'll make sure to make an introduction to.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you for everybody that was participating today. It was very useful to have your feedback. And also funny.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.